and welcome. You're watching the Mojo Story, our digital platform that has been relentlessly on the ground, traveling across India. We are in Jaipur today as we continue to track the big stories from different cities and bring you voices from the ground. Now, the dramatic development that has taken place in the capital in the last 24 hours have been these images. Let's bring these images up. This is the Prime Minister standing with different leaders of Jammu and Kashmir, 14 of them from 8 different political formations, the same men and women that the government had arrested in the aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370. But as they say never in politics. We are now seeing a renewed attempt by the center. This is the first major outreach to leaders of Jammu and Kashmir since many of these men and women spent months in detention. What is the significance of this meeting? Well, among those present was a Kashmiri leader, Sajad Lone, who once likened the Prime Minister to being an elder brother, was also an ally of the BJP and perhaps the first separatist of significance to actually embrace mainstream politics. How do we read this particular meeting? Sajad Lone was present there. He joins us now live to tell us how much has changed and how little has changed after this meeting. Let's please bring up Sajad and welcome him to the program. Waiting for Sajad? Yeah, there he is. Hi, Sajad. Tell me, when you were in detention all those months ago, and I remember I spoke to you right after that, and you were very hurt and you were very angry that you had been placed under detention after all the risks you took in your alliance with the BJP. Um, when you walked in to meet the Prime Minister yesterday, did you do so without any trace of bitterness?
Barkha, being part of the political leadership in Kashmir, these things are not new. Jail, being in jail or being arrested and then actually sitting across with the same people, these things are not new. They are not very desirable, but that's how it is. That's how J&K has worked. And then we are talking to the government, the union government. And we're not talking to a political party, we're talking to institutions, we're talking to the central government. So that makes a bit different.
Explain what you mean and why you distinguish between the two. Why you distinguish between the government and the institutions on the one side and the BJP on the other. You're clearly saying you see the two as different entities.
You see, government, administration, government, they're two different things. Political parties are two different things. We abide by the rules of the government, irrespective of our political differences. We go and apply for a municipal permit. Doesn't mean that if the opposite party is in power, so we don't go. Governments, basically, preferably, and especially in matters of national interest, they're partyless. But that doesn't happen in.
Explain you
But yes,
if
it is
you
my
had to
state, we are a union territory.
yeah. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a state. We have a union territory. We are all run by a non-popular government because the elections have not been held, and we have to do what it takes to ensure that democracy returns at the earliest. And that doesn't mean there were 8 parties, and not all will be a part of the ruling party if elections whenever they take place, or not all of them will win. So it does not mean, don't take it as if we want to go and hold elections because we want to sit on the seats of power. That's a very, in elections there are losers, there will be winners. But koi bhi aaye, whosoever it comes, we believe it should be an elected government.
Is it fair to say therefore कि आपके मन में आप सरकार केंद्र सरकार से मिलने गए, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट से मिलने गए, बीजेपी से नहीं?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a Prime Minister of India. The post of the Prime Minister of India is the biggest. It's above all parties. बरखा ये तो मतलब if you look at all religions, जो हम तो बोलते हैं अमीर, कोई बोलता है whatever राजा, whatever it is, the ruler, the prime minister. It's above parties, above states. It's sort of a omnipresent political concept that transcends political lines and actually after post elections has to in like matters of like J&K. There was the BJP unit of the J&K also, yeah, sitting right across us. So the distinction is, I would have thought is quite is not very difficult to make between the government and the
The
party.
Prime Minister made a comment. Okay, the Prime Minister made a comment कि दिल्ली की दूरी और दिल की दूरी दोनों ही खत्म होनी चाहिए ये फासला कश्मीर और दिल्ली के बीच में जब आपने ये बात सुनी when you heard the Prime Minister say this a man you had likened to being your brother a party that you had been in alliance with did you take him at face value or did you feel bitter for all the months you had to spend in jail?
नहीं जेल का कोई bitterness नहीं है. I'll tell you, yeah, there जब हम जेल में थे शायद at times, but it wears down finally. जेल का कोई bitter, I've seen much worse jails, very violent jails. This was nothing compared to that jail, but then it was a jail, yes. And even however refined a jail is a jail when your right to movement is curtailed, right to speak is curtailed.
Yeah, under
But
house arrest or under detention should be the
but
more
Barkha, I'll
accurate
tell you
phrase. Yeah.
something. The biggest problem that faces us today is that जो यहाँ का liberal media है या जो whatever you could say the liberal sections, they don't seem to understand is that we have no choices. We have no choices. The liberal opinion across the country is in, I would have thought at the moment, in great minority. Uh, Whatever happened in Kashmir, J&K, I could say, without any doubt, that barring some level of opposition, overall the people of India did support it. So the liberal opinion across the country, is not in a great majority. But now the liberal opinion has to understand the compulsions of the people of J&K, the political leadership of J&K. They have to sit and do business with those very people who might have put them to jail, with whom they might be disagreeing. But that is the reality as it exists. Our people have problems, day-to-day problems. There are some problems which are linked to administration, which are linked to governance. Then there are problems which are of long-term nature, which are political in nature, sentimental in nature. So all these problems, you sit aside and say, okay, I won't do anything. Uh, that's not possible either. You can't do that. You can't just sit aside. Sitting aside and doing nothing is not an option. That
Do,
luxury we
do you
simply don't have.
do you feel caught between right wing bigotry and left wing liberal dogma? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, you see, Barkha, the left and the right unfortunately coincides when it comes to Kashmir. ऐसा तो हो नहीं 47 से लेकर आज तक give a single day when democracy was not murdered in Kashmir. Left has also, by left I don't mean CPIM, left or liberal opinion, the liberalists so-called, have digested big elephants when it comes to, and not even burped when it comes to Kashmir. So I don't think that they have any claim to any moral space. And let's not go into it what all they have digested, but they have digested much bigger things. So I'm not under any great delusions that a more leftish, liberalish government would be a lot different or would do things differently. Yeah, some subtleties, yeah, but not massively different.
So you're saying that for you, as a Kashmiri politician, there is little difference between the liberals and the right wing.
Yeah, very little. Maybe in language, they might be using a much more temperate language. You know,
I was going to
in
say the liberals never demonized you. The liberals never demonized your people. The right wing, at least the right wing media has demonized you, has vilified you.
हाँ मैंने बोला ना फर्क तो है. There is certainly no difference, but core content was the same. Core content was same. I'll tell you, when I was talking yesterday also with the media or जब Article 370 पर ले ली, we believe that we have a great love, respect for Article 370. But we also have to be very practical that this government, which represents the right-wing extreme of Indian polity, will not restore it. But that doesn't mean that it stops or ends all means of restoration. There is court, and then there could be a liberal government at a future date. You put your hand on your heart. Do you expect anything from a liberal government? If anything will come, it will come from the courts, if it comes. So that's why I'm saying that there is not a lot of difference. And even the eroded form of 370 is perhaps the biggest example of how the left or the right works. Left works rather, silently. The right is more vocal.
Well, I'll get to the left versus right, but one thing I want to ask you about is to tell us a little bit more about what happened behind closed doors. We were told that the meeting was quite emotional. Did you in particular speak about your very checkered journey as a separatist who first embraced the electoral process by fielding candidates, proxy candidates in 2002, as the man who once called Narendra Modi your brother, elder brother, as the person who allied with the BJP and took a risk when no one else was willing to. Did you speak about just the fight to be a mainstream politician, to be someone who's an Indian? वो जो लड़ाई है, वो जो लड़ाई है, आपने उसके बारे में क्या बोला?
पहले तो the liberal media, the liberal section, they're not willing to forgive me for calling him the elder brother, right? So that thought, chalo, I get it, right? But having said that, yeah, I did. I do at times believe that I am at a vantage position. I've traversed a distance, and I also thought that it was imperative that in a meeting as important as this, and as sentimental as this, as emotional as this as it got, it would be good if I share my journey, some aspects of my journey. Um, and I did, and it was good. I did. It at least touched my heart. I don't know about others. Shared my experiences, um, that journey. What it meant to be before, what it means to be now, and yeah, I did. Somehow, I was able to speak
Can you
from it.
can you open up a bit about the लड़ाई? And I know you and I have spoken about this earlier कि आपने मुझे एक बार ही बोला था कि यहाँ पर एक इंडियन पॉलिटिशियन कश्मीर में भारतीय नेता बनने के लिए भी जदोजहद करना पड़ता है और मेरी इंफॉर्मेशन है कि आपने प्रधानमंत्री को भी कल की मीटिंग में ये कन्वे किया.
See, it I can't put everything on. It won't be appropriate. But yes, there have been many examples. I can give you millions of examples where there are two things, Barkha, which the Indian people will have to understand. People of India, me included. Jail mein one thing struck me is that we Kashmiris should also not isolate ourselves from the mainstream of 135 crore people. They are our strength. They will be our strength if we understand and recognize that strength. Those huge chunk of people, we have to make them understand that a lot of misunderstandings about us have been circulated, which might not be true. ये सच है that there is separatism in Kashmir. ये सच है that some people have taken up the gun. ये सच है that some people do get guns from across the border and maybe then attack our forces and have a separatist bent of fine. But ये भी सच है that the forces who have suffered most, that the community which has suffered most and rendered their lives in opposing this gun also happens to be the Kashmiri. Now in Pura Hindustan mein, what we see is the person who has yielded the gun, who has wielded the gun in support of a separatist cause is well known. Everybody knows about his role, but thousands of others who are resting in graves in opposing that gun, उनका तो कोई नाम ही नहीं लेता. Nobody talks about them. Even if you do an RTI today, community-wise, you see, and let's talk of two bullets, the Indian bullet and the Pakistani bullet, in a conflict zone, in a place where there is a lot of violence. So it's fair to assume that a Pakistani bullet kills a person who is fighting for India. Otherwise, why would it kill them? The people resting in their graves must be in thousands, maybe 15 to 20,000 Kashmiris, and in fact, Kashmiri Muslims. Now, this Kashmiri Muslim has to actually get a certificate of patriotism from someone who has never been near these risks. It's like you being there in the midst of Corona, and then you have to give a certificate, you have to get a certificate from someone of good behavior who has not stepped out of his house. How would you feel? And that's, I think, how we feel. You know, the battle is fought there, right? It is not rhetoric of a studio. It is where people actually get killed for their utterances, for their political beliefs. And we are not talking of 2, 3, 4, 5. We're talking of around 15 to 20,000 graves. And it's incumbent upon the people of J&K, the leadership, to make the people, the entire 135 crore, understand about it. And the entire 135 crore has also to understand that given they live far off, their battle is being fought by the very people that they are demonizing. That these anchors in their studios on fat salaries are demonizing those heroes who are putting their lives in risk. ये तो है ना, इसमें तो कोई I'm willing to argue it anywhere.
Did you convey this to the Prime Minister and to the Home
Well,
Minister
in many
and to
words,
Mr.
yeah,
Doval?
in many words, it won't be appropriate to say what I did convey, but in many my sentiment, my whole emotions, yeah, certainly, you know. देखिए मैं आपको बात बताऊं, once you traverse this ideological distance, once you move through different camps, is when you are able to appreciate this thing. कि कैसे अब जैसा for example, you know, this whole certificate thing, this has happened, you know, across all ages, uh, you know, in different circumstances. Now, like, and apart from that, this whole concept of Indianness, मुझे जो लगता है कि, you know, what love, affection, uh, Ladlapan, 370, I call it Ladlapan. You know, you're the what child do you call it? You know, you have a special child, and he or she is your special child. Um, I call it Ladlapan, and you know, that's been taken away. My point is that which state would want the Ladlapan to be taken away? So ले लिया, अब क्या करें? But you know, it was not as sort of vicious a thing as it was. You get that
Uh,
feeling of, okay, I'm fine. I'm a special entity in my country,
yeah.
rather than saying that I'm something distinct. No, it was not about being distinct. It was about being pampered. Yeah, pampered.
Do I sense an acceptance there कि ये जो लाडलापन है जो ले लिया गया ये वापस नहीं आएगा, अब जीना पड़ेगा लाडलापन के बिना?
You see, देखिए सियासत में there no nothing is permanent. You know, nothing is permanent. ये लाडलापन काफी कम भी हो गया था, ऐसी बात नहीं है. जो पैम्परिंग 1947 में थी तो काफी खत्म भी हो गई थी. तो लेकिन ये है कि you know, I really would not bet beyond 5 years on any political move in a place like JNK. It's I wouldn't. You know, if good days have not stayed, I don't think the bad days will stay either.
Let
And when I
me
say
ask
bad,
you,
I'm not. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, let me ask you a kind of complex, nuanced question as somebody who spent a lot of my life reporting from Jammu and Kashmir. अगर मैं 370 को देखूं तो मुझे ऐसे लगता है that it was an issue for constitutionalists because after all it was the Indian constitution that gave you that लाडलापन, that exceptionalism. दूसरे तरीके से इसको देखा जाए तो separatists के लिए तो ये मुद्दा था ही, तो मेन स्ट्रीम के लिए ही मुद्दा था. क्या माना जा सकता है कि मेन स्ट्रीम ने आज ये एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है कि ये अब वापस नहीं आएगा और जो आगे की पॉलिटिक्स है बीजेपी ने एक तरह से उसकी बाउंड्रीज, उसकी लिमिटेशन सेट कर ली है. अब उसके विद इन आप लोग आर्ग्यू करते रहिए कि 35A वापस लाइए, डोमिसाइल वापस लाइए, हमें लैंड के कुछ स्पेशल राइट्स, हु शुड बाय हु शुड नॉट बाय, वो हक वापस दे दीजिए, हमारा स्टेटहुड वापस दे दीजिए. बट इज देयर एन एक्सेप्टेंस दैट द बाउंड्री हैज बीन framed by the BJP and that boundary is unless the court surprises us 370 is gone and there is an acceptance, a recognition of that?
You see, I was asked in एक बार एक press briefing. I said it's very difficult but not impossible. But you studied history, didn't you, in St. Stephen's? History is a
Yes.
witness. I mean, say what things, you know, if you look at history, you know, I wouldn't rule out or rule in anything. But with the present dispensation, with their ideological contours, I do agree with you, it's an improbability But then there is the court, and there are other things. And the biggest thing is to learn to not allow this one disagreement to be a cause of stalling the whole process. That would be a pity. Let us agree on the agreeables first, on what we agree. The most important thing is that we have to facilitate, encourage the current union government to get into the mode of deliverability, to start delivering on other things like the state. From a Ladla, very powerful state, to a UT, that is very humiliating. That should be taken away as fast as possible. Some parties think election jaldi karo. ऐसा नहीं है. We are not in a hurry to go and fight. Let there be state आए. मैं फिर बाद में कभी इलेक्शन कराएं, इनकी मर्जी है. लेकिन एक जो स्टेट में जो एक डिसिप्लिन होता है between the trade-off between bureaucracy and the political class, that has got muddled up. You have a bureaucratic class which doesn't give a damn about the political class. And incidentally, political class is elected by the people. So when they don't give a damn about the political class, they won't give a damn about the people. This is as simple as equation. X is equal to Y is equal to Z. So X is equal to Z. So it's not about us. It's not about the political people. It's about that whole system, whole discipline of that trade-off.
How would
Sorry.
how would you describe the Prime Minister's body language with all of you yesterday? The Prime Minister is somebody you've had many conversations with in the past, and then you ended up in detention. Um, and then, as you said, nothing is permanent in politics. How would you describe the nature of his approach towards all of you yesterday?
Barkha, I'll make one statement, a big statement. Even in my jail, not even for a single moment in my mind had I never ruled out this meeting or a meeting of this type. Knowing what I know of whenever I have met the Honorable Prime Minister and all people who have been a part of the statecraft would know that eventually reconciliation would be the final product of this. In a political system, putting in jail, other things. You have had emergency in India, for heaven's sake. Then did they not join each other parties? That was much worse. They would get locked up in proper jails for 2 years. So we've seen much worse, in our evolution of our democracy. We've seen much worse. So utna आप देख लीजिएगा कि in other parts of India also, you have had a very rough ride towards democracy. So ये वाला moment जो है, it was only a matter of time. I personally always thought that this moment will eventually come, where we will sit with Farooq Saab, Mehbooba ji, Maulana Azad Saab, Umar Abdullah Saab, people like me, people like others, Altaf Saab the वहाँ, BJP वाले, the Congress के Mir Saab थे. I was very surprised. The Prime Minister at the end, I think, called him and from far, and Mir Saab, how he probably knew him, and the bonhomie was good. I think there was an emotional bond, which was good. This cannot be all politics. The way, the conditions, the circumstances in which we met could not have been totally political. There had to be an emotional input, a psychological input. And I think that was there. But it's just that you've been covering Kashmir for 30 years. You have seen the demise of very big powers who at a certain stage were very popular, but the moment they shied away from constructive, decisive engagement, they have almost disappeared now. And this mainstream, if it puts ifs and buts and conditionals and conditions and their own saying about why they were in jail, will also disappear, not physically them, but the concept will disappear, it will weaken. Engagement का कोई भी substitute नहीं है.
ठीक है, मैंने मानी आपकी बात कि there was no choice but to engage, पर एक ह्यूमन साइकोलॉजी भी होती है, एक सिनिसिज्म होता है, एक गुस्सा होता है, एक दर्द होता है, एक हर्ट होता है. Would you say that yesterday's meeting, this is my personal opinion, it exposed the limitations of both sides? The center had to confront its limitation. In the end, आप नया कश्मीर बोलते रहिए, आप आ गए ना वापस उन्हीं पुरानी 8 पार्टीज पे, और आप लोगों को कन्फ्रंट करना पड़ा कि आपकी जो डिटेंशन थी वो एक मेजर पॉपुलर रैलिंग पॉइंट नहीं बन पाई। दोनों के लिए एक मोमेंट ऑफ ह्यूमिलिटी था।
देखिए, look, if you want to get, if you want to have an analysis based on a predetermined result, which is based on minus and minus, fine, I agree with you. But no, there is other way looking of it, is that this is, dawning of realism, confluence of circumstances, and yeah, evolution. You evolve finally. No, we have to sit with them. We have put them in jail, but we have to sit with them, and we have to decide that even if they put us in jail, they are in power. They are going to be in power until 2024, or they run this country, and in that country, all our rights vest with the parliament. And to get them back, we have to talk to them. ये जो हमारा सो कॉल्ड लिबरल मीडिया है, बरका मैं आपको एक बात बताऊं, बच्चा कोई नहीं है, but I've seen some articles very critical, and India is a land of elections. There are elections every 6 months. अभी यूपी का होगा, यूपी के बाद पंजाब का होगा, पंजाब के बाद आसाम का होगा, उसके बाद बंगाल का होगा, right? If you write articles which scare away the prime minister, which scare away a political party because of an impending election in some state, and then the parliament election, you're not actually facilitating delivery. The people of Kashmir have to be given their rights. And if you start putting a ruling party in, it's not about elections winning or losing. It's about large swathes of people, more than 10 million, 10 million, more than 10 million, 12 million, एक सवा करोड़ हमारी आबादी है जम्मू एंड कश्मीर की. Their rights have been taken away. And you write art, you know it, that if if the tempo is upped, if you up the ante, that nothing will be delivered. So are you not in a way impeding deliverance? And ये delivery की एक window of opportunity होती है. You miss it, they say, okay, fine, now after the next election.
What did you think of महबूबा जी's statement कि अगर आप तालिबान से बात कर सकते हैं तो आप पाकिस्तान से क्यों नहीं करते? और मैं इसलिए पूछ रही हूँ क्योंकि आपकी जिंदगी, मैं लोगों को हर बार याद दिलाती हूँ क्योंकि जो कश्मीर नहीं जानते वो शायद आपकी जिंदगी के बारे में नहीं जानते. You got married in Pakistan. You're married to a Pakistani. I remember not just attending but reporting on that wedding in Pakistan, of your wedding to Asma, and we have those pictures also. Uh, you uh, you then blamed the Pakistani deep state for the assassination of your father, Abdul Ghani Lone. I was present when he got assassinated. जब महबूबा मुफ्ती कहती है पाकिस्तान से बात करिए, तालिबान से क्यों नहीं बात, तालिबान से कर सकते हैं तो पाकिस्तान से क्यों नहीं? Those words caused a controversy. Do you think that controversy was legitimate, or do you agree with her comment?
It won't be appropriate for me to comment on her utterances. But या तो मैं, maybe I was very attentive, but I don't recall having heard a lot of things that you said. But she did say some things outside. I can just put my view. It's not, उनके बारे में नहीं है. But I'll just give my viewpoint. हम कश्मीरियों का सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. You see, एक हाथ से ताली नहीं बजती, हमारी भी गलती है. Have we learned something? हमें बड़ी बातें करना बड़ा अच्छा लगता है. One of the things, Barkha, that I have learned in 20 years of my political career is that Kashmir is a part of the world. World is not a part of Kashmir. We have to come out of this thing that as if world revolves around what happens in Kashmir. Hamari state nahi. We are a bloody UT. Do you really think we can actually dictate to Delhi who to talk to and who not to talk to? And it's not without, there is a foreign minister. There is a foreign ministry specifically to decide whether we have to talk to them or not. And if they decide, they can talk to them. But to be very honest, hamara apna, it's like emperor's clothes. We don't have anything on. We're going to get some suits from the Pakistanis. First, let us wear our own clothes.
That's quite candid of you. What do you see as your own political journey after this meeting? और जो लोग कहेंगे Sajjad Lone is still an apologist for the BJP, आप उनके बारे में क्या कहेंगे या उनके
नहीं,
criticism
क्यों
को क्या
कहेंगे?
कहेंगे?
वहां सब थे तो मैं ही अपोलोजिस्ट क्यों हूँ? वहां सब थे, एवरीबडी वाज देयर।
वो बाहर निकल के कुछ और, वो बाहर निकल के अलग बात करते हैं, आप बाहर निकल के
नहीं
अलग
नहीं,
बात
सब
कर
नहीं
रहे
नहीं
हैं।
नहीं, सबने यही बात करी है, कोई अलग बात नहीं करी है। आई डोंट वांट टू पुट एनीबडी इन द टॉक, बट आई हैव बीन लिसनिंग टू एवरीबडी, द जिस्ट इज सेम, एवरीबडी, वी
कितनी
विल
बात,
नॉट गिव
कितनी
इन।
370 वापस लाने की कितनी बात हुई अंदर प्रधानमंत्री के साथ?
मुझे लगता है मैंने ही ज्यादा बात की इसके बारे में।
अच्छा।
तो नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है, बाकी ने भी की होगी, ऐसा नहीं है, बट यू नो ओब्लिकली आई थिंक एवरीबडी टच्ड इट, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, एंड यू नो टॉक्ड अबाउट इट, एंड as I told you, there is a certain sense of realism that I can tell you my thing, that there is no incentive in giving it up. And I don't see any that you can just give it up. But at the same time, you know, you can't just put everything standstill waiting for it. So ऐसा है. So you see, I'll tell you. मैंने क्या देखा यहाँ? You know, मरने से पहले मैं किताब लिखूंगा on the liberal media and how illiberal actually it is. In Kashmir, they come with their own set of choices. Total पहला कि ये हो गया वो, ये वो, it's a good boy and that is a bad boy. फिर आप कुछ भी करिए आप बैड ही रहेंगे, because illiberal, वो जो liberal media है उनने बोल दिया. But in that book I'll certainly want to show कि मैंने बोला ना, हाथी डाइजेस्ट कर दिए उनने कश्मीर में, उफ नहीं करी, बड़े बड़े कांड हुए, and not a single word in the media.
आपको लिबरल मीडिया, सुनिए ना, आपको बीजेपी जिसने आपको डिटेंशन में रखा उससे ज्यादा गुस्सा लिबरल मीडिया से है।
नहीं, उनके टाइम में भी हमने जेल देखा है ना मैडम। I have been beaten black and blue during their time also. आज की डेट में तो अखबार में आया, तब तो अखबार में भी नहीं आया। मैंने उस जेल का जिक्र भी किया वहां कल। You know, I have seen jail in that time also. ऐसा बात नहीं है। You know, and let me tell you one thing. We have been jailers in our times also. It's a very murky world when you come to Kashmir, when you talk of Kashmir. But I'm telling you, on authority, that you know this and this is my opinion. You know, I actually could be wrong. Is that you know, the so-called liberal? You know, you have to understand that you're not able to help the people of J&K because the government has taken some steps. They are the ones who are running it at the moment. And I don't see the liberal sections being very, you know, trying to understand what problems the people of J&K have. And, you know, how difficult it is, especially Kashmir. You know,
Okay,
being singled out.
last question to you. Where do you see the political journey ahead? What leverage, if any, do you think the Gupkar alliance actually has? And on the redrawing of constituencies, जिसके बारे में कहा जाता है, कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि demographics बदलने की कोशिश है, उस पे आप क्या कहेंगे?
नहीं, देखिए, that will be, वो तो सबसे बड़ी चोरी होगी if they try to tinker with the delimitation. That would be the ultimate, you know, sin. It should be done with utmost honesty. Otherwise, I don't know, and you know it better than me. They do anything in delimitation beyond the ambit of law, outside the ambit of law. You know, in the longer run, it will be one of the biggest disasters. Just hope good sense prevails and they don't do anything like that.
The leverage of the Gupkar alliance?
I have been a part of the Gupkar alliance, have some nice ones. I will not talk about them. You know, I've left in, you know, very amicably, and
Are you ready for elections in a JNK, maybe without statehood restored and without 370? Are you ready for elections?
well, we'll take a call when it, you know, when the situation arises. But electoral
Would you say
politics.
like your last, yeah, sorry,
No, no, you tell me.
complete your thoughts.
Hello?
I was just going
Hello?
to end by saying that do you think that you were named rather appropriately, because like your name, can you hear me? Like your name,
Yeah.
you're quite a lone traveler in Jammu and Kashmir's politics.
No, I am not a lone traveler. I was loner before. I have a lot of bigger group. Many more people have come on the journey. Uh, it is just the liberal media doesn't want to see. They still want to see me as a loner. मैं आपको बताऊं मजे की बात ये
Okay,
honestly
हाँ
this is
बताइए बताइए.
this is
हाँ.
if 10,000 people were to join me, they would still see me as a loner. They will never ever uh, try to acknowledge that. Do you know, Barkha, in the last parliament election, in the Library, we came second after national conference. But you wouldn't know it because nobody is willing to acknowledge it. They're not willing to acknowledge it, simple, plain. Because liberal media के इसमें नहीं आता है. और,
हमें
and I'll give
हमें
you,
हाँ, sorry, to be completely
and
honest. हाँ.
it's because of the origins. मैं आपकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. You have a very good relationship with me. I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about this whole bogey of this so-called liberal media, and especially in the context of Kashmir.
Okay.
मैं आपको ये बता दूं कि जो आपका लिबरल, एंड मैं फिर से बोल रहा हूँ, मैं आपकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. हमारा जेल जाना में नाम रखने के लिए भी मुझे लगता है उनको बड़ा मुश्किल लगता था. Very grudgingly they will put a name that this idiot is also behind the bars.
I'm glad you haven't lost your sense of irony and your sense of humor. That is a good thing, Sajad. It's been interesting as always talking to you. और देखते हैं, as they say, watch this space. Very very interesting. I think there is a certain amount of pragmatism in the meeting that has taken place yesterday by both sides. That's how I would describe it. It's called a reality check for both the center and the mainstream. Sajad, thank you. We will be
Thank
talking
you.
again soon, both in Delhi and on the ground in Kashmir. Good to see politics back as a subject of discussion in Jammu and Kashmir. I think that's the good thing. Thank you very much, and we'll keep talking. Thank you.
God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.